Today, it's October 23, 2023. The U.S. District Judge in the Donald Trump insurrection case has finally issued a limited gag order on all parties related to the case that involves Donald Trump and is being prosecuted by Special Counsel Jack Smith. I'm Esmeralda Padilla-Gould and welcome to The Pulse.
And I'm Sam Buban. Welcome to The Pulse.
Tanya Chutkan, the federal judge in D.C. who is overseeing the criminal case involving former President Donald Trump, has on October 16, 2023, issued a limited gag order against Donald Trump and all involved, including Trump's attorneys, prosecutors, and witnesses against making comment about the case. Donald Trump, who was charged in a D.C. court on federal criminal counts for his role relating to the efforts to overturn the result of the 2020 presidential election, has 6 others who are not yet indicted and are considered in the court documents as unindicted co-conspirators. Donald Trump, after weeks of publicly ranting and attacking judges, prosecutors, defaming witnesses, making threats, and encouraging his supporters to demean and attack witnesses, was issued a gag order 2 weeks ago by Judge Arthur Engoron in the New York civil fraud case. And in the Washington, D.C. criminal case, Judge Tanya Chutkan had issued a similar but limited gag order upon Donald Trump. After a motion filed by Special Counsel Jack Smith for a gag order to keep Trump from making unhinged comments about the case, Judge Chutkan, a Washington, D.C. federal district judge, granted the gag order motion with limitations.
The gag order which he issued on the bench prohibit all parties from statements publicly targeting Special Counsel Jack Smith, his staff, the judge's staff, or any other court personnel. Statements about the families of those individuals are absolutely prohibited.
The veteran judge, an Obama-appointed jurist, ruled Monday last week that pretrial attacks on potential witnesses and others threatened the integrity of the upcoming trial. She barred Trump from continuing to publicly berate Special Counsel Jack Smith and his team, court staff, or any reasonable, foreseeable witness. Judge Chutkan followed up with a 3-page order on Tuesday last week that spelled out her ruling in writing, but it left out many details about the penalties.
But Judge Chutkan made it clear on that day that Trump remains free to make statements criticizing the current administration and the Department of Justice. Statements asserting that the defendant is innocent of the charges against him or that his prosecution is politically motivated. She noted at the bench and in her order that the integrity of the case and the safety of those involved takes precedence to the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech, citing historical decisions. During the Monday hearing, Judge Chutkan, in the preface of her order, points to Trump's use of the word thugs to describe people involved in the legal process, worrying that it was a signal to Trump's followers to harm. She said, "If you call people thugs enough times, doesn't that suggest that someone should get them off the streets?" Trump used the term again not long before the judge's written order was released. Trump's lawyers filed papers on Tuesday afternoon last week initiating an appeal of the gag order.
For those of you who missed the story on Donald Trump's criminal indictment in Washington, D.C., for his role in the January 6th Capitol attack, Trump was charged in a Washington, D.C. federal court on 1 criminal count of conspiracy to defraud the United States. Applies to Trump's repeated and widespread efforts to spread false claims about the November 2020 election, while knowing they were not true, and for allegedly attempting to illegally discount legitimate voters, all with the purpose of overturning the 2020 election. 1 count of obstruction and attempt to obstruct an official proceeding is tied to Trump and his co-conspirators' alleged efforts after the November 2020 election until January 7, 2021, to block the official certification proceedings in Congress. 1 count of conspiracy against rights refers to Trump and his conspirators' alleged attempts to oppress, threaten, and intimidate people in their right to vote in an election. The charge of conspiracy against rights goes back to Civil War era. The law was passed after the Civil War as the way to stop members of the Ku Klux Klan and other similar organizations from intimidating, harassing, and outright terrorizing Black voters, especially in the South. The law was part of the Enforcement Act passed between 1868 and 1870 and served as the basis of the federal activism in prosecuting corruption of the franchise to vote, until most of them were repealed in the 1890s, according to the Justice Department. According to University of Richmond law professor Carl Tobias, in a report from National Public Radio, the criminal charges against the former president is so damning and represents real legal jeopardy for him, and that it cut to the heart of democracy.
The governor of Arkansas, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, a one-time Trump White House press secretary, is now embroiled in a corruption scandal in what the media now describe as Lectern Gate, in reference to scandals like Watergate. Before this story reached the mainstream media, our newsroom's Joe Buban has already alerted the story through Midas Touch Network. Here's how the first story about this broke out. Let's play the video with Ben Meiselas of the Midas Touch Network.
I'm Ben Meiselas from the Midas Touch Network. Busted. MAGA Republican Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas, has been caught in a major political scandal that may not only lead to her being removed forcibly as the governor of Arkansas as things progress, she may indeed be arrested and charged with multiple felonies under state and federal law. This scandal is being referred to as Lectern Gate because it involves a very odd purchase made by the governor's office of a $19,000 lectern. But it turns out that the money doesn't seem like it was really intended for a lectern, because the lectern itself wasn't $19,000. The lectern at most was $7,500 if it was real, but it seems like it was a fake. And then it seems like numerous documents were manipulated and tampered with to try to cover up where the money that was reportedly going to this lectern, where it was really going originally.
What made this case got so exposed and invited curiosity was Governor Huckabee Sanders' effort to change the state law concerning requests for documents under the Freedom of Information Act. The reporter who first broke the story obtained the documents from a state agency, which appears to be an evidence of an alleged corruption. On October 12 last week, the Associated Press reported that the state lawmakers in Arkansas voted to audit the purchase of the lectern for Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders, delving into an unusual controversy that has prompted questions about the seemingly high cost of the item and claims that the governor's office violated the state's open records law. The All-Republican Executive Committee of the Legislative Joint Auditing Committee also voted to audit the Republican governor's travel and security expenditures that were retroactively shielded from public release under a new Freedom of Information Act exemption signed by Sanders last month. The 39-inch tall blue and wood-paneled lectern was purchased in June with a state credit card for $19,029. It has become a focus of intense scrutiny in recent weeks and has gained national attention. It appears that the transaction, the purchase in August, paid for by the state, now appears to have been reimbursed by the Arkansas Republican Party. But as of late, a state employee now alleges that they are being told to alter the documentation of the transaction. Here's what was found out by Midas Touch Network.
It's possible. they're going to do the audit, do you plan to do an internal investigation in your administration?
I don't think it's necessary.
Can you explain some of the...
That is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who is somehow the governor of Arkansas, in a complete panic mode. And I'm Ben Mycelis from the Midas Touch Network. Earlier in this week, we released our video on Lectern Gate here at the Midas Touch Network, a scandal involving Sarah Huckabee Sanders purchasing purportedly a lectern at a price of $19,000 and change back in June. But when you unravel the layers, it appears that she was funneling money to her friend through an LLC referred to as Beckett Events LLC. Her friend is Virginia Beckett, who had nothing to do with being a middleman when it comes to the sale of lecterns. They don't sell lecterns at Beckett Events LLC. And as you unravel the layers further, it seems that Virginia Beckett, her friend Hannah Stone, who's a colleague in Beckett Events LLC, this new entity they formed, took a very lavish trip to Paris where they partied with Sarah Huckabee Sanders in Paris. A very expensive, lavish trip. And could this purchase just underneath the reporting limits of $20,000 for some purported lectern be actually concealing the true purpose of the money, which was just to basically use taxpayer funds to pay for a party with friends in Paris? So Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I'm not sure if she's seen our video on Lectern Gate, but a million other people have seen our video on Lectern Gate. It's approaching the population in Arkansas if it continues to grow at this pace. Let me show you this next clip. This was a press conference that Sarah Huckabee Sanders gave earlier this week after we released our video, where she basically is asked a question about the Lectern Gate, the lectern purchase, and she just says, I'm not going to address that. We're focusing on real issues here. We're focusing on serious issues here. Here, play this clip.
Yeah, because I figure if I do, then you would talk about nothing else instead of the important actions that we're actually taking today, which unfortunately is not surprising that while we are focused on things that actually impact our state and impact Arkansans, the media wants to spend all of their time focused on things that frankly don't. Any other questions?
Where's the lectern?
We are going to take a commercial break. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the Pulse. The Israel-Hamas war continued to be a humanitarian crisis both for the Palestinians in Gaza and Israelis that are still trapped inside Gaza, and more than 100 that were taken hostages by Hamas. The Palestinians living in Gaza, estimated to be about 2 million people, has nowhere to go as Israeli forces is ready to siege the Gaza Strip. In spite of the world's leaders calling for a ceasefire in the Gaza, a humanitarian corridor has not yet been worked out and approved by the Israeli government and the Hamas. President Joe Biden is well aware that the situation is highly volatile. and can expand into a bigger regional war if Israel does not approach the crisis with extreme caution. He also asked the Egyptian government and Hamas to allow food and water and essential supplies to flow into Gaza via Egypt by opening the border from Egypt in order for international aid to flow. The thorny issue is still on a halt as of Friday last week, with several dozens of trucks from different relief organizations were waiting at the border crossing to Gaza from Egypt. The fear of Israel is the lack of inspectors who will make sure firearms and other weapons are not flowing into Gaza. According to a report from the Washington Post, Israel wants to be involved in the truck inspection of the relief trucks at the Rafah border. And that talks in Cairo, Egypt, last Thursday, yielded a step with an agreement to set up a United Nations-operated system at the Rafah border crossing in northeastern Egypt. Speaking before a crowd on Friday last week at Arish, a town near Rafah, where Egypt and the international community had set up a logistics base for incoming aid, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, and it was crucial that those trucks move quickly as possible, he added. Those trucks are loaded with food, medicine, and water. President Biden, in a message to the American people and the world, expressed sympathy for the Israelites as well as genuine concern for the safety of innocent Palestinians in the Gaza. Here are some of what President Biden said in a press conference.
Early this morning I returned from Israel. They tell me I'm the first American president to travel there during the war. I met with the Prime Minister and members of his cabinet. And most movingly, I met with Israelis who had personally lived through horrific horror of the attack by Hamas on the 7th of October. More than 1,300 people slaughtered in Israel, including at least 32 American citizens. Scores of innocents, from infants to the elderly grandparents. Israelis, Americans taken hostage. As I told the families of Americans being held captive by Hamas, we're pursuing every avenue to bring their loved ones home. As president, there is no higher priority for me than the safety of Americans held hostage. The terrorist group Hamas unleashed pure, unadulterated evil in the world. But sadly, the Jewish people know perhaps better than anyone that there is no limit to the depravity of people when they want to inflict pain on others. In Israel, I saw people who are strong, determined, resilient, and also angry, in shock and in deep, deep pain. I also spoke with President Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, and reiterated the United States remains committed to the Palestinian people's right to dignity and to self-determination. The actions of Hamas terrorists don't take that right away. Like so many other, I'm heartbroken by the tragic loss of Palestinian life, including the explosion at the hospital in Gaza, which was not done by the Israelis. We mourn every innocent life lost. We can't ignore the humanity of innocent Palestinians who only want to live in peace and have an opportunity. You know, the assault on Israel echoes nearly 20 months of war, tragedy, and brutality inflicted on the people of Ukraine, people that were very badly hurt since Putin launched his all-out invasion. We've not forgotten the mass graves, the bodies found bearing signs of torture, rape used as a weapon by the Russians, and thousands of Ukrainian children forcibly taken into Russia, stolen from their parents. It's sick. Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Meanwhile, Putin denies Ukraine has or ever had real statehood. He claims the Soviet Union created Ukraine. And just 2 weeks ago, He told the world that if the United States and our allies withdraw, and if the United States withdraw, our allies will as well.
Lawyer Sidney Powell, one of the 18 defendants in the Fulton County, Georgia RICO case, has pleaded guilty on her part of the conspiracy. According to a report from Associated Press, she pleaded to reduce charges Thursday last week to reduce charges over efforts to overturn Donald Trump's loss in the 2020 election. Powell, who was charged alongside 17 others with violating the state's RICO, which stands for Racketeer Influenced Criminal Organization, entered the plea just a day before the jury selection was set for her trial. She pleaded guilty to 6 misdemeanors accusing her of conspiring to intentionally interfere with the performance of election duties. As part of the deal, she will serve 6 years of probation and a $6,000 fine and will write an apology letter to Georgia. She also recorded a statement for prosecutors and agreed to testify truthfully against her co-defendants at future trials. Powell was initially charged with racketeering and 6 other counts as part of a wide-ranging scheme to keep the Republican president in power after he lost the 2020 election to Democratic candidate Joe Biden. We are going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we will be joined here at FILAMTV studio by our guest interviewee, William Doc Waltz. Please stick around.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Here with us today is Mr. William Doc Waltz, who is running for mayor of Las Vegas in the mayoral primary. Welcome to The Pulse, Mr. Doc Waltz.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Could you please tell us a bit about yourself, your background, and what motivated you to run for mayor of Las Vegas in this election?
I'm William Doc Waltz. I was born and raised in Chicago. I graduated Horace Mann Elementary, Chicago Vocational High School, Tuskegee University, and IIT Chicago Kent College of Law. I was in my second year of law school when Harold Washington announced that he was going to run for mayor and take on the Democratic machine. And every fiber of my being stood up, and I knew I had to get involved. So I took a leave of absence from law school, and I helped to organize the Lawyers Committee for Harold Washington, served as president of law students for Harold Washington, and served as his assistant scheduler. And then I became his top assistant. In that capacity, I traveled with him locally, nationally, and internationally. I was once upon a time national political director for Jesse Jackson, and when John Kerry ran for president, I was his main surrogate in Illinois. And I've been a candidate for mayor of Chicago.
Doc, I know as you said, you've been in the Chicago political scene before.
Mm-hmm.
Which one would be more challenging being a mayor? Would it be Las Vegas or Chicago?
Las Vegas would be more interesting, but Chicago's more challenging. Chicago's the most political place on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Two-part question, Doc. How many are now running in the primary, and what distinguishes you from the other candidates in the primary?
Very good question. There are currently 2 gentlemen and 5 ladies in this upcoming election. And the thing that distinguishes me is I'm the only candidate with the vision, ability, and capacity to transform Las Vegas from just an international tourist destination into a safe and secure world-class city that's designed to ensure the prosperity of each and every single resident and leave no one behind. We have the plan to make Las Vegas that city that every business wants to be a part of.
Just a follow-up question. What made you say that Chicago will be more challenging and Las Vegas will be an interesting place?
Chicago politics is war. Chicago politics is like no other. As a matter of fact, Chicago had what was called patronage. So if you were hired by an alderman, you had to work for them and they could fire you without cause if you didn't work for their political campaign. So you are required to do politics even in your off time. So they were able to amass a huge political army. Las Vegas is more sensible.
Well, Doc, thank you for being with us and explain your views and where you stand on things. And we hope this will not be the last time you'll be invited here in our show.
Please invite everyone, or is there anything that you would like to convey to our audience?
I'm the only candidate for mayor with the vision, ability, and a comprehensive plan to really unify the city across all geographical, philosophical, ideological, political lines. And at a time like this, when you have real division between the Reds and the Blues, the Democrats and the MAGA Republicans, we need someone that has the ability to transform Las Vegas at the helm. And I'm that one individual that can do that, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to unify the city by promoting cultural and diversity sensitivity amongst people of all ages, races, socioeconomic backgrounds, all religious persuasions, all sexual orientations, all physical and mental disabilities and limitations, because none of us is any better than the rest of us. We're all in this together.
Yes. Well, good luck to you in your run, Doc, running for mayor
of Las Vegas.
Las Vegas.
Thank you so much.
And me?
Well, folks, we're out of time. Join us again next time. I'm Esmeralda Padilla-Gould. Thank you for watching.
And I'm Sam Buban. God bless your week.
Pure Medical Equipment provides top-notch quality medical supply equipment. Whether to rent or buy, Pure Medical Equipment and Supplies has it all.
Pure Medical Equipment is committed to serve and give back to Southern Nevada.
We deliver medical supplies and rentals to your door.